Christina started a fight with Fallon just because she doesn't like me. I'm gonna continue talking and I'm just waiting for her to get in my face so I can finally slap this bitch. It's gonna go down.
All right, babe, so per request from my most recent TikTok live, someone asked me to do an analysis on Julie from Bad Girls Club season 9. And I feel like the clip that I was able to find when I was revisiting that season, just certain clips and things on the internet, I feel like the clip that was referenced earlier of this analysis is the perfect depiction of a ringleader amongst a group, especially amongst a group of women, who is orchestrating some kind of division or discord and disagreement amongst other parties. But another thing that stood out to me about that clip is dealing with the envious person who fits the envious archetype titled the provoker. So when you are amongst a group of women, such as, what was presented in the Bad Girls Club franchise, whose behavior is rooted in maybe some competition, right? Seeing who can last the longest in the house or seeing who can exercise dominance and power to get a particular person out of the house. You have to understand that this is a symbolic Hunger Games, right? And especially when we're talking about the female Hunger Games. So with Julie being our muse for this analysis today, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and hop right into this video. Now, a couple things to note as far as Julie's, character or personality in this season of Bad Girls Club is taking into consideration when you are dealing with a group of women who are operating with the cliquish or mean girl kind of mentality or methodology. Understand that there is always a ringleader. There is always going to be a culprit for some kind of attack amongst a group of women. And that's why I felt like the clip referenced at the very beginning of this analysis was really important to include in this video here today, because one thing that stood out is obviously her intentionally trying to provoke another young woman in the house. Another thing that stood out to me is she utilized other people amongst her friend group or amongst the circle to essentially do her dirty work on her behalf. And to provide context, I'm going to read from a couple excerpts in the book. One of the first excerpts being the provoker. And it reads, "This is the individual who lives to provoke a response from their prey. Typically, the provoker aims to evoke negative responses from their targets. A negative response will validate them as they thrive whenever their target appears to be disheveled, angry, distressed, sad, or depressed." Another excerpt that's relevant to this case is titled "Teamwork Makes the Dream Work" tactic. And it reads that the teamwork tactic is much more intense due to the mutual intention to take the target down. When it's a collaborative effort and all parties involved are dedicated to ruining the target of envy, the attacks become heinous. And lastly, the envy by proxy excerpt reads, "The envy by proxy tactic is used when a person who is envious uses another person or other people to do their dirty work on their behalf. This is a tactic often used by people who have a severe concern with their image and maintain a certain sense of pride. So to keep their hands clean, they use another individual to sabotage their target of envy. The other person is appointed based on their mutual feelings of envy for the identified target." And all three of those excerpts are significant with our case study today because, for one, it gives you some intel as far as what the provoker's purpose is when they are trying to elicit a negative response or reaction from their target. Secondly, another important thing to take into consideration is understanding that people will rally up the troops against their target of envy. And there's another metaphor in the book that talks about pawns, right? So when you start to get higher in rank, when we think about the metaphor of a chessboard, you have to exercise exclusivity to protect yourself because you have more to lose. Versus people who have lower ranks, they typically excel through quantity rather than quality. So they utilize things like collaboration and teaming up with other people in order to accomplish a particular agenda. This becomes prevalent in a group dynamic when you realize people are doing things such as mobbing, such as reputation ruining amongst a group, spreading gossip, slander, lies, attacking a particular person in a group setting, etc. And lastly, understanding how there are certain people who may be in a prominent position or they just may really believe in preserving their image, their public image. they will learn how to utilize other people as pawns in their personal game to accomplish a task. And if that task is tearing down a person that they're envious of, then so be it. So if you are at the receiving end of this treatment, all of these moving components are going to be essential for you to grasp. So where does the provoker, where does the ringleader of an envious attack or a mobbing situation, some kind of group smear campaign, where does their power lie? Their power lies in numbers. These are the people who run in packs, typically because they know that they cannot take down the target of envy themselves. They may battle with some kind of inferiority complex, or they may be operating from a state of honesty. There's also another envious archetype in the book listed as the inferior. And they are considered the most dangerous because they acknowledge their shortcomings and they learn how to essentially accomplish their wicked and sinister agenda in a clever manner. So it means that they are typically very meticulous, very thoughtful. And the reason why they typically thrive in social environments is because they have learned how to utilize other people as their personal pawns. They know how to send a person out to orchestrate a smear campaign, to carry out a smear campaign. I've heard a lot of you guys share that in a professional setting, you might have had to deal with a supervisor, a boss, somebody in, a prominent position, and they utilize your colleagues and coworkers to carry out with some kind of slander against you, to make things difficult for you on the job. And this is all indicative of, first and foremost, a ringleader in a group setting, but secondly, someone who is operating from the envy by proxy tactic as read previously. So once you grasp the fact that people who typically operate with this type of methodology, they thrive in numbers. So when you are coming into a space and you are attempting to gain favor with the group, you have to understand that this person already has a leg up, especially if you are someone who is confident in yourself, you're authentic with your shortcomings, you're authentic with the attributes and assets that you bring to the table, and you're just secure in who you are and your identity. Operating with groupthink mentality typically isn't going to benefit you as much as somebody who is more open to being a chameleon, who is more open to being a shapeshifter because they lack that sense of identity, or at least a stable sense of identity, right? And there's another section in the book titled Never Play on Their Turf that pretty much emphasizes the principle of when you are stepping onto territory, new territory, and that's not just about environments, that could be a group. You have to assess what it is that you are going up against. And one thing that's really important is perceiving an area that your adversary has a leg up against you in. So in this context, when you are dealing with someone who is operating in packs and you know that you're someone who can thrive without the pack, or maybe you do better without packs, you cannot operate with the quantity over quality mentality. You have to lead with the quality over quantity mentality. And what is the quality in question? Your perception and your insight. And you utilize these things to your benefit by assessing for cracks in your adversary's foundation. Some may be asking what that crack is. That crack is typically the very thing that they are trying to utilize against you, that group. And to explain further, I'm going to read from the Prides excerpt in this book. And the excerpt reads, Prides. Since we're on the topic of pride, let's explore another dimension of it, the communal aspect. In nature, lions unite to form groups called prides. These prides serve a clear purpose. They protect one another, hunt as a team, and share resources. In professional and interpersonal contexts, pride can symbolize prominent groups, teams, or communities we navigate and interact with. When you find yourself up against a quote-unquote pride of lions, do not feel discouraged. While groups often enhance collaboration and support, they also have inherent vulnerabilities. Most people associate vulnerability with isolation, but rarely consider the risks of betrayal or abandonment from within their inner circle. And of course, the book goes into some additional details as far as actually capitalizing on pride's essentially crumbling from within. But in this case, I want to keep it short and succinct, but essentially, understand that when you are coming up against a provoker, you're coming up against a ringleader who is using, flying monkeys, for lack of better words, to come up against you. your best bet is always going to be exercising exclusivity. So don't get into the habit or fall for the trap of trying to associate yourself with these people or attempting to explain yourself to these people, because that's where they gain leverage. Instead, you keep exercising exclusivity, you implement emotional regulation, and you start to revoke access. All right, babes, that's all that I have for this video today on Bad Girls Club and understanding the female Hunger Games with our muse being Julie from BGC Season 9. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, but of course, I want to hear you all's comments, perspectives, and opinions in the comment section below. I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next video. Take care, babes.